Hi, this is Ryan from Oxbow Fly Rods, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through how to get your handle, your reel seat, and your rod all ready for the glue up. Along the way, I'm also going to be showing you some tips and tricks that I've learned for if any of these components are either too tight or too loose. Finally, at the end of this video, I'm going to be showing you how to get this all glued together and get you one step closer to completion. Let's begin. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to test to see if our handle fits. And in order to do that, we're going to first take our blank. We're then going to put our reel seat on it from the bottom. And then we are going to slide our handle down. And if your handle does not make it to the bottom, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to ream it out. In order to get your handle to fit, what you're going to need is a reaming stick. You can purchase these reaming sticks at any fly shop that you're purchasing your rod components at, or you can make one yourself. In order to make one, all you need is just a piece of a rod and you need to wrap it with sandpaper. You got to make sure that this piece is tapered. So what you're first going to do is you're going to take your handle and you're going to insert your reaming stick into the bottom. You're then going to spin it and remove a slight amount of material, and then you're going to test it. In order to test it, you're going to do as we did earlier, where you put your reel seat on the bottom and then you push your handle all the way down. Once it fits, that means you're ready to go. Okay, so some other things that you may need to do some adjustments for are your handle. When it comes from the factory, it may have too tight of a fit with your reel seat. And in this case, all you're going to need to do is just sand out this borehole and make it a little bit wider. In the case of your reel seat, if your reel seat is too loose fitting into your handle, all you're going to need to do is just wrap it with some masking tape and then just do some test fits with your handle. And once it fits good, then you're ready to go. So now that we know the handle fits, we are now going to make some reference points on the rod. So in order to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to take the lower section of our rod and then we're going to put our reel seat on the bottom. From here, what we're going to do is grab our handle and we're going to slide the handle almost all the way down. But first, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make a mark at the top end of the reel seat and then push your handle all the way in and make another mark at the top of the handle. Now that you got these, we now have reference points for gluing it together. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to take all the components off, and we are then going to look at our mark and we're going to add a little bit of masking tape around it in order to ensure that when we sand, we don't get anywhere higher on the rod. So you basically take your masking tape and you're going to just make a little mark just like that, and then now your rod is safe for sanding. So for sanding the rod, you're not going to need a very coarse grit sandpaper. What I got right here is just 80 grit. And what you're just going to do is from your mark down that you made, where you wrapped your tape, you're just going to hand sand it and get the rod a little bit scratched up. Alright, so now that you've roughed up the lower part of your rod, what you're first going to do is you're going to check to see if your grease mark is still there. If it's not, repeat the last step and make sure you get those marks back. But if it is, what we're then going to do is we're going to grab our masking tape and we're going to place it about 1 centimeter below your highest mark for the reel seat, and we're just going to start wrapping it. And what you're going to do is you're going to do this in 3 spots. You're going to do it near the top, and then in the middle, and then near the bottom. And what I do is I do just a little bit in each section, and then I go back through and I add more. And I do this in order to make sure that I have the correct amount. Alright, so now that you've laid down your masking tape, what you're now going to do is you're going to grab your reel seat and you're going to wiggle it on. You want to make sure that it has a very snug fit. So if it's feeling a little loose, just add a little bit, and if it's feeling too snug or you can't fit it on, just remove a little bit. And check that for each of your 3 masking tape spindles that you've put on. And once it feels nice and tight, you're now ready to move on to gluing up your handle. So now that you've done the test fitting of your handle and your reel seat to your blank, and you've built up material so that there's a snug fit, we're now ready to epoxy. And to epoxy, what I'm going to be using is Pro Paste. First, it's going to be a Part A, which is a resin, and then I'm going to be mixing it in a 50-50 ratio with the hardener. After that, I'm going to apply this to the rod and put each component on. While doing that, if there's any overspill of epoxy, I'm going to then add some isopropyl alcohol, and that will help wipe it off without leaving any marks once it dries. Alright, let's start. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the top piece of tape that we used to protect the rod when we were sanding down the lower part of the rod. The next thing that I'm going to do is grab isopropyl alcohol and apply it to a cloth to clean the rod. Following that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my resin epoxy. And then I'm going to be using a fork. Then you're going to be grabbing your Pro Paste hardener. You're going to need to mix it for a little while. I usually do just a few minutes to ensure that it's well mixed, because you want to make sure you have a really good coat when you do this. You don't want any points of failure. The first thing you're going to want to do is apply the epoxy to where the reel seat's going to be. You're going to want to apply this very liberally. Any excess we will just wipe off. So now what you're going to do is you're going to grab your reel seat and you're just going to work it onto the rod. You're going to see quite a bit of epoxy coming out, and you're going to just use that excess and put it right back onto the platter. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll spread this epoxy up the rod so I don't waste any, and then I'll just wipe off the remainder off the reel seat to ensure that I have none coating it. And you want to use this indicator mark right here. This mark will help you so you know how high up to put the epoxy so that you don't put it too high. A little bit to that top ream right there, right where it's going to be sitting. Any excess that we have here we'll wipe off.
sure to give this a thorough coating. Now that you got that all coated, what you're now going to do is you're going to grab your handle and you're going to slide it all the way down, and you're going to just twist it as you bring it down to ensure that you thoroughly coat this. Alright, so now what you're going to do with your rag is you're going to wipe off any excess epoxy. Then you're going to take your butt section and add a little bit of epoxy into the inside, and then also just a little bit around the rim of it. You want to make sure that this piece stays on. Once you get that piece thoroughly coated, you're going to grab your rod and you're just going to place that right on in. And then at this point, you're going to want to push, pressure, and slide it down. And then you're going to take your rag, you're going to wipe off any excess epoxy. Finally, you're going to add a little bit to the top right here where your winding check is going to go. See, you got that? Then grab your rag again, and then just wipe off that epoxy excess. And you're going to want to spend a few minutes just going through and making sure no epoxy made it into any crevices that it wasn't supposed to go into. So now that you got all your components glued up, you're just going to set it down in a spot that's warm and just let it dry out for about 24 hours. And once that process is done, you're going to be ready to start putting on your eyelets and start putting thread down. And that will be in the next video. See you then.